Today, I just wanted a peaceful morning with my sister. But what I witnessed shattered everything. A surprise visit, an unforgettable sight, and a terrifying truth I never imagined. How could I trust someone who once taught me about honesty and loyalty? What has my sister done that makes me no longer recognize her? Come with me as I unravel the story that has left me confused and unsure of what to do next. When I look back on the past, one of the clearest memories I have is the day my family's life changed forever. I was only 10 years old and my sister was 16, an age when everything feels much more impactful. We lived in a family that seemed perfect, with parents who loved each other and a home filled with happy memories. But all of that shattered one day I will never forget. My sister and I came home early from school, like we always did. But that day, when we opened the door and stepped inside, everything felt different. The usual sounds, the laughter, the noise of footsteps, were gone. I clearly remember the feeling at that moment. Something was off, like the air in the house had changed. As we walked into the living room, we saw things no child should ever have to see. Our dad was hugging a strange woman. My sister froze, her hand still gripping her school bag, her eyes wide in shock, as if she couldn't believe what she was witnessing. I turned to look at my sister, and in her eyes was pure panic, followed by silence. We both stood there, unsure of what to do, unsure of what to say. The only thing I could hear was the pounding of my heart. Then, my sister turned to me, looking at me with a desperate plea in her eyes, as if she was silently saying, "Don't tell Mom." It was a moment that made me feel breathless, as if my whole world had been flipped upside down. Despite that, I couldn't stay silent. I couldn't watch my mom live in a lie. Everything around me seemed to crumble, as I realized that my dad wasn't just betraying Mom, he was destroying the very foundation of our family. Anger, disappointment, and helplessness surged through me. I felt an invisible force pulling me towards Mom, and I knew I had to do something. After a brief, stunned silence, I made the decision to do something I knew would change everything. I ran out of the house without looking back at my sister, and I went straight to my mom. I told her the truth that my sister should have told her. The moment I revealed the betrayal to Mom, I saw her eyes change. The pain and the heartbreak were clear on her face. As for my sister, the one I had tried to protect all these years, she looked at me as if I had just betrayed her. The blame came pouring out of her mouth. I didn't understand. I had ruined the family. I had destroyed everything. That was the moment when the relationship between my sister and me started to change. The moment my sister could never forgive me, even though I did what I thought was right. She never looked at me the same way again, and I couldn't look at her with the same love I once had either. After our parents' divorce, my sister's and my lives felt shattered. Even though she was 16, an age where one can better understand and cope with change, the shock of the divorce still left her feeling lost and vulnerable. While my mom and I tried to rebuild our lives in a new city, my sister had to leave her friends behind and abandon her senior year of high school to start a life in an unfamiliar place. She didn't speak much about it, but I could sense the pain behind every glance and word. For me, life seemed to be a little easier. Although I couldn't avoid the psychological shock, I quickly found ways to adjust to the new environment, especially with my mom helping us settle in. But my sister, whom I always saw as stronger and more mature, seemed to be struggling in her own life. She went through days of uncertainty, questioning if she had missed something important, something that left her feeling hollow. But then, everything slowly started to change. My sister, with her relentless efforts, gradually overcame the shock of the divorce. She was no longer the lonely girl. She became a confident, mature woman. After a few years, I started to see positive changes in her. She married a man whom I thought was perfect for her, a kind, loving husband who would do anything for his family. He wasn't the smartest man, but he was a good person, always working hard and cherishing his wife. When I heard my sister talk about her married life, I could feel the happiness she had found. However, there was something in her tone that made me feel uneasy. Every once in a while, she would complain about feeling down, about how her life seemed to lack excitement. One morning, when I called her, she shared that she was feeling bored and uncertain, that her marriage no longer brought newness, and she wasn't sure what she really wanted. She mentioned that maybe it was just seasonal depression, a phase that everyone goes through. I listened and tried to comfort her, but a part of me felt that something wasn't right. It seemed like her life wasn't as perfect as she wanted everyone to believe. While she tried to push through, maintaining a mask of happiness, I knew deep down there were unresolved feelings, emotions that hadn't been dealt with. But I couldn't do much besides listen, because I understood that everyone has to figure out their own way to address their personal issues. Still, I never imagined that just a few months later, I would be confronted with a far worse truth than I could have ever imagined. When I went to visit my sister, I had no idea that this visit would lead to a change in our relationship that could never be undone. After my sister's confession about feeling bored and dissatisfied in her marriage, I began to feel that something was wrong. Although she kept insisting it was just seasonal depression, something deeper seemed to be at play. Even though I tried to comfort her and encourage her to push through, that nagging feeling wouldn't leave me. A week after that conversation, I decided to visit her. I didn't just want to rely on phone calls anymore. I wanted to see her in person and check if she was truly okay. I knew her life wasn't as perfect as she made it seem, but I had no idea it was this serious. I was expecting a simple, normal visit, a casual morning coffee with my sister. But when I arrived at her house, I saw a truck in the driveway. This immediately struck me as odd since her husband, whom I thought was calm and reliable, didn't usually leave his truck parked there. However, I brushed it off, thinking maybe he was doing some work around the house. I rang the doorbell and walked in, but no one came to answer. The door was unlocked, which felt strange, but I assumed she was busy with something inside. I walked in, and then I froze. What I saw was beyond anything I could have imagined. My sister was standing there, hurriedly trying to cover herself, and next to her was a man I didn't recognize, standing completely naked, staring at me in shock. The sight was enough to stop me in my tracks, my breath catching in my chest. It felt as though the world had just collapsed around me. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My sister scrambled, her eyes wide with panic and pleading for me not to say anything. But I couldn't look at her anymore. Without saying a word, I turned and walked out of the house, my heart pounding in my chest. I don't know how I even made it outside, but once I was in my car, I lost control. Tears flooded my face as I tried to make sense of everything I had just witnessed. Sitting there in the car, I felt like my entire world had shattered. This couldn't be real. My sister, someone I had trusted my entire life, had done this. All the lessons she taught me about love, loyalty, and family suddenly felt hollow and meaningless. I felt utterly betrayed. My phone buzzed in my hand. It was her, calls and texts pouring in nonstop. She was begging me to talk to her, to listen. But I couldn't. How could I? How could I speak to the person who had just destroyed everything I thought I knew about her? I didn't even know who she was anymore. The betrayal was too much for me to handle. I didn't know what to do next. I just knew I needed space, time, and clarity. I couldn't comprehend what had just happened. Sitting in my car, my eyes blurred with tears, I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare, unable to wake up. My sister, the one I had considered an integral part of my life, had just shattered everything I thought I knew about her. Every word she had ever spoken about loyalty, love, and family now seemed like a cruel joke. I couldn't face her, couldn't say anything anymore. Her calls and texts flooded my phone, incessant and desperate. I wanted to pick up, I wanted to hear her voice, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Each time I looked at my phone, it felt like a stab to my heart, a painful reminder of what I had just witnessed. The questions in my mind kept swirling, unanswered. Why did she do this? How could she betray her family, betray herself? Had I been so blind to her true nature? Had I been too trusting in someone I thought I knew so well? Anger and disappointment surged through me, leaving me feeling like a stranger in my own family. I felt betrayed, like I was losing my grip on everything I had once believed in. I couldn't go back, couldn't even think about speaking to her right now after seeing what I had. It felt like a punch to the gut, shattering the image I had of her, leaving only emptiness and confusion in its wake. The next day, I still couldn't calm down. Every time I tried to process what had happened, I found myself gasping for air as if something heavy was sitting on my chest, suffocating me. I knew I had to talk to her, but I had no idea where to even begin. How could I look at her again without feeling like everything between us had been torn apart? How could I ever trust her again? After a long, restless night of deliberation, I decided I needed to send her a message. I wasn't ready to talk face to face. Not yet. I needed space, time to think. I couldn't have that conversation in person, not with everything so raw and fresh. Sister, I don't understand this. I can't stay silent anymore. I need time to think and process everything. Please don't call or text me again right now. I can't face you at this moment. After sending the message, I immediately turned off my phone. I couldn't handle any more calls, no more messages. I needed peace, even if just for a while. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I didn't leave the house, didn't interact with anyone. It felt like I was in another world, where everything was uncertain and nothing made sense. Every memory of my sister, of our family, now seemed tainted, twisted by the betrayal I had just witnessed. It was as if I was watching a play, and the entire script had just changed in front of me. I couldn't see a clear path forward. Could I ever forgive her? Would our relationship ever be the same again, or was this the end of everything? The pain in my chest didn't subside, and I realized I needed more time to understand what had happened and how to deal with it. Everything suddenly seemed so difficult, and I couldn't see the way ahead. I didn't know if I could ever face my sister again without feeling the weight of this betrayal hanging over me. How could I reconcile the person I once knew with the reality I had just discovered? There was so much uncertainty, and I didn't know if I could navigate it. The next day, I found myself still consumed by the pain and confusion in my heart. Every time I tried to do something, I was pulled back to the horrifying memories of the previous morning. Everything was spinning in my mind. I didn't know what to do, how to face my sister, and I no longer understood my own emotions. The feeling of betrayal, the inability to trust someone I had loved for so long, it lingered in my chest, gnawing at me, and I couldn't shake it. She kept calling and texting nonstop. Every time I looked at my phone, it felt like I couldn't breathe. I didn't know how to respond because no words would soothe the pain I was feeling. Honestly, I wanted to give her a chance to explain, but my heart couldn't accept the reality of what had happened. She was someone I had once trusted completely, but now the image I had of her was utterly destroyed. The moment I saw her in that situation, I knew I couldn't go back, and forgiveness didn't seem possible. I thought back to everything she had shared with me about her dissatisfaction with her marriage, how she had spoken of feeling empty. I now realized I had overlooked those signs, thinking she was simply going through a tough phase. But now I understood that perhaps she had never found a way to confront her emotions and had turned to this wrong path. But no matter how I tried to rationalize it, the truth couldn't be changed. A day after I sent the message to her, I noticed something strange. Part of me, despite the pain, wanted to seek an explanation. Maybe I needed to face her to better understand the situation, even though I had no idea what I was going to confront. Would she be truly sorry and admit everything, or would she justify her actions? My heart was torn, and I didn't know what to do with the situation. Eventually, I decided to call her back. I wasn't sure I had the strength to hear what she had to say, but I felt like I couldn't keep avoiding it. She answered right away, and her voice, full of worry and weakness, only made me more conflicted. "I'm sorry, I don't know what to say anymore. I don't know why I did it," she choked out. But those apologies felt too little, too late. I was silent for a long moment, unsure of what to say. She continued to explain, saying that her life had become suffocating, and she didn't know how to break free from that feeling. She admitted that, in a moment of weakness, she had made a mistake. But perhaps that admission wasn't enough to ease the pain I was feeling. While I understood that everyone has moments of vulnerability, I couldn't overlook what she had done. It had completely shattered my trust in her. The conversation lasted only a few minutes, but it felt like a turning point I knew I couldn't come back from. My sister had done something unforgivable, and I didn't know if our relationship could ever be restored. When I hung up, I felt empty. I had no answers for what had just happened. Everything was still unclear, and I didn't know what to do next.